All right, so now let's talk about ways to structure the email so that it's interesting, informative, and entertaining, right? So the structure of the email goes like this. There's the title, there's the body, there's kind of the lesson that you want to get, that you want people to get out of the email, and then there's the call to action at the bottom. The title, the body, the lesson, and the call to action at the bottom. We discussed last time we met what the most important part was. The most important part is the title, okay? So with the email, the title is the subject line, right? And there are several different types of formulas you can use to create the subject line of your email. And it needs to be kind of thought-provoking, it needs to be engaging, and I gave you some of the subject lines that use emotion to connect with people. Like how-to titles are good, titles that create cognitive dissonance are good so that people are wondering exactly what's going on and they want to open the email to find out specifically what the message is that it contains. So titles, subject lines that are provocative are good, but the subject line of the email, the title of the email, always needs to match what's in the body, all right? So one of the quickest ways to lose the trust of people who are reading the emails is if the subject line is provocative, yet it doesn't match what's in the body. So you can always find a way to make a good title match the email body. And one of the things that I love to do is I love to use emotion and self-deprecation to pull people in, because everybody likes to feel like they're a little bit better off than somebody else, right? So I gave you some of the titles, some of the subject lines that work for me: how I got so fat, my biggest mistake and what you can learn from it, my most embarrassing moment, I almost lost everything. This past week was how I lost, the one was about losing my voice. In fact, I used the subject line for half my list. I used the subject line, use your voice, and, why my wife, and the other one I used, why my wife loved it when I lost my voice. And the why my wife loved it when I lost my voice did better than use your voice. Obviously, I should have known, right? So subject lines that are self-deprecating do really well because they evoke emotion in the reader. Subject lines that help people realize that they're going to, that reading this email will take away some form of pain are great subject lines. So, think about the type of pain you can take away. Subject lines that help people achieve a goal are also very good. Subject lines that include things that people are interested about, but keeping in mind that you don't want to trigger any spam filters. So, how I got so fat and how it made me more money. I mean, that's kind of a thing that creates cognitive dissonance. It also is playing on the self-deprecation aspect of it. So, think about subject lines that will intrigue and entice the reader to open the email. And then the body of the email is written like an arc in a movie, okay? There's the introduction of a character, there's something that happens, and then there's the lesson or the result that's learned. That's the arc. The introduction of the character, the hero, the protagonist, the antagonist, something that happens, and then the lesson that's learned, okay? And from a size standpoint, everybody always asks me this: how long should these emails be? We're talking like 500, 750 words at the most. If you're really into it and you want to write 1,000 words, fine. It can be as long as you want it to be, as long as it's interesting and entertaining, okay? So the arc is a story arc, almost like you're telling a story in narrative form. And then there's a lesson at the end, okay? In most cases. The lesson at the end can be related to your practice, related to the practice of law. If you're doing something that's entertaining, then just tell the entertaining story. If you're doing a restaurant review, then just do a restaurant review. You don't have to put it in an arc. My husband and I pulled up on a beautiful summer's night. You don't have to do that. Just do the restaurant review, If you want to write that way, write that way. The key is to be informative, be entertaining, maintain that level of communication, maintain that relationship with your audience, and move on with your life, okay? This is going to be 45 minutes of your week or a half hour of your week. This is not, you're not writing to try and get the Pulitzer Prize here. You're writing in a conversational tone. That's the other thing, okay? Really important for me to stress that with you guys. This is not, you're not writing for law review, okay? It's not an academic paper. It's a conversational tone. Totally acceptable for you to use. You don't have to use, for example, if you were writing for academic purposes, you would say, when one finds oneself in this situation, right? No, you can speak in the first person, you can speak in the second person. When you find yourself in this situation, write like you're speaking to someone, all right? Because that's what this is all about. You're continuing a relationship, okay? The call to action at the bottom can be as simple as, remember, you have a lawyer in the family for any real estate matter or any legal need, call me. If I don't handle it, I will refer you, I will connect you with one of my partners who I trust to handle these matters for my clients, okay? That could be the simple call to action. It could be just a tagline that you put at the bottom, all right? And it can go in every email, but your actual email where you're pitching your services, that's going to be, I'm offering a free audit of your corporate organizational documents. Call me to schedule a time when we can get together and talk about what I need in order to produce this. Okay, so that's the really quick version of how the content is structured. We covered it in a little bit more detail last time. What questions do you have about that? Anything?
I still find the time commitment, 45 minutes, almost unrealistic. Really hard.
Because you're doing a lot of research. You're writing really detailed stuff. It's too intellectual. No, I'm not joking. I'm being serious.
It does make the weekly very hard.
I understand. Yeah, if I were writing like you wrote, I would stop. I'm being honest. I'd quit. So let's give me a topic of an article. This will be helpful for the group. It'll be helpful for you, but it'll also be helpful for the group. I think what we can do is we can take some of the topics that you're covering and break them down into smaller topics. So give me one of the topics that you're writing about now.
So one that I was going to do is actually this is a heading that I thought of, like 10 reasons for foreign companies and entrepreneurs to establish a U.S. business entity.
Okay. So 10 reasons. What I would do is I would take, give me the first 3 reasons.
So limited liability protection of,
Okay, that's an article right there. That's one article. You could write 500 words on that easily, right? What's number 2?
Ease of formation.
Okay, that's an article. So instead of the 10 reasons, if you do the 10 reasons, you just got to write the list and get out. I mean, so each one of those can be an article. What I would do in your case is I would say, the introduction to these articles would be there are a number of reasons, to do this. Today we're going to highlight one. And the one we're highlighting today is limitation of liability. And here are the reasons why. And you're going to go nuts and write 750 words just on the limitation of liability. You know what I mean?
Is there value in doing a teaser, like saying, these are the 10 things I'm going to write about, and you have 10 weeks of content?
Sure, absolutely.
If somebody's interested in number 8, you're going to get the email every week. They're really interested in number 8, but they're going to read that, I would think.
Yes.
Now I'm trying to figure out what 10 things I have to write about.
I mean, that's the thing. Then you're committed.
Yeah.
But you don't. But who picked the number 10? Michael did. He picked the number 10. You could pick 4.
Yeah.
He picked 4.
A very good point, which is how to develop the content ahead, and how to plan ahead. That's, for us to get that time and commitment is an issue.
So in Michael's case, what I would do is I would write all 10, and then I would write new headers, and I would break it up into a 10-part series, right? And then they could put it on the blog, and each one that comes out then links back to the other ones. So if you jump in on number 6, you can go back to number 5 on the blog, and it lives there forever. It's great content for the website. It's good for you. You know, the idea is to make this as easy as possible, but still provide valuable content. I have very little concern about the quality of your content. My concern is that you're going to go mad trying to pull this off because you're trying to fit, 10 pounds of dirt in a 5-pound sack, right? So what I want you to do is just take stuff like that and break it up and distribute it out over time. So if you want to sit down and write the whole thing, if that's the way your mind works, that's fine. Write the whole thing and then break it up, and then you got 10 weeks of content. You bought yourself 10 weeks. That's almost 3 months, And in 3 months, you can write at least one more of these.